Hi to everyone. We are Ada and Eric from PoisonedRock. With us today there is Heri Joansen from TYR, vocalist and guitarist. So, hi Harry, and thanks for being with us. And
Hi, thanks for having me.
it's a pleasure. First, an easy questions. Talk briefly about TYR and why you choose, with all the elder future, TYR.
Well, why we chose the name? It's the younger Futhark. It's the what do you call it? The medieval alphabet or the medieval set of runes. We started in 1998 in Copenhagen, but we were all Faroese band members at that time who had moved to Copenhagen. I've been I can maybe say obsessed with Norse mythology and history since I was 10 years, and when I was 14 I came into heavy metal, and for that reason and maybe some other reasons I decided to try to combine the two and turn it into the band we have today. And of course when you talk about Nordic and Faroese history, there's the mythology and runes, of course, so it all falls into the same category in a way.
Okay.
All right, now let's just talk briefly about your beginnings as a band. What would you say are the main differences between the first full-length album, How Far to Asgard, and the second, Eric the Red, which brought you into Napalm Records?
I had some ideas with the first album, something a bit Black Sabbath-like, but it was the first real album. I had made some recordings before, but nothing that was released with a band we had before too. And I was very surprised after it was released, after I got some distance to it, like in time, you know, a few months later, listening to it. I thought that was not at all what I was trying to do. This is much darker and doomier and less, maybe less polished than I wanted it to be. Of course, it was a very cheap production, and you can hear that. So Eric the Red was much more what I tried to do in the first place. Maybe there are some qualities with Eric the Red, with How Far to Asgard still, but if I had done it, if I had more experience writing songs and being in studio, I think it would have been a different album. Also, we were not the best musicians when we started. We were all still, or at least Collier and I were still studying music, and we were both going to the same music school at the time, and looking back, I think that album could have been made better. But I mean, you have to make a first album, and it will probably suffer from a lack of experience anyway. So I'm much more satisfied with the second album, honestly. But I think there will always be like that. That the most recent album is the one I'm most satisfied with.
Okay, so fans and magazines say that Hail to the Hammer, it was like an hymn to the new generation of folk, Vikings and pagan metal bands. What do you say about it?
Of course, I'm very pleased that songs turn into hymns and landmarks, if you can call it that. I'm very happy with it. I stand behind the song. You know, I would have only written and recorded it a bit better, but as it is, you know, I like it. I'm very pleased with bringing attention to Nordic mythology and Nordic history, and yeah, if I can get it, I'll take it.
Okay, with Ragnarok you left another landmark, as you just said, and a huge impression. What can you say about this album? How did it change the band and the band's career?
Yeah, we'd been on tour a bit by then, not very much. We kind of started, this was in 2006, I think. That was the year we started touring for real. So we had done some very small tours here and there. By then we had been in school for some years, Kari and I, So the music is much more progressive. We were much better musicians, no doubt about it, and I think that can be heard on the album. And it is about as progressive as I would like to make it. It would be easier for people to listen to if it were less progressive. And I'm also very pleased with that we made it like a full concept album. The previous two albums had been, I'm not sure you can call them concept albums, that they had some overarching weak storyline, but you can also see the songs as independent stories, like a collection of short stories. And whereas the Ragnarok album is more like a novel, if you can call it that. So overall, I'm very, very pleased with that album. Sounds good, and we played decently well, but it didn't become as popular as the other albums. I suppose it's the fact that it's progressive, and the progressive music has a smaller audience.
Yeah. So in 2008, you released the Land. And then, where we found several traditional Faroese lyrics like Gaturima or Heathen Fagra. So why did you choose to do this?
Well, since we started with all albums, there's some traditional music, but there's more on Land than on any other album, I think. I'm not sure that was a conscious decision. I just had the melodies and the arrangements there, and I decided to put them on. If you'd asked me shortly after the release, I'm sure I would have more to say about it. But it's possible that I thought that Ragnarok was a slight turn away from being a folk metal band, and then I wanted to get back to that. That might have been one point of view, that I wanted to go in a more simple direction. Now Land did turn out to be quite progressive, but in a darker and more brutal way, I think. Whereas Ragnarok had more finesses. Land is more. I wanted to make it less progressive, but it turned out it was actually probably just as progressive in a different way. So I was trying to get away from the progressiveness back to the folk thing, but in my own opinion, I overshot the mark and went too far in the other direction. So as for the folk songs, I probably wanted to get closer to the folk metal band thing again.
So all the Heathen Hammer High from By the Light of the Northern Star became, we can say, a second hymn. So what is differentiated it from the previous one, the Hammer? Which are the difference?
Of course, this is a much faster song. I think it's better put together. I'm more pleased with it. It's much more fun to play. And I was really thinking about making a song to replace Hail to the Hammer, so that we didn't have to play it for every show, because it was getting boring. But now we have to play both songs, so it really didn't solve the problem. So the point of the songs is very different. Like Hail to the Hammer is like a short window into, say, the thoughts of a Scandinavian Nordic man during wintertime in the Viking Age, and what he might be thinking. Whereas Hail to the Hold the Heathen Hammer High is more a hymn to values that might come from a mythology, but still acknowledging that the mythology doesn't have to be literally true for that reason.
All right.
And it's a little bit anti-Christian, maybe.
Yes.
I hope you don't mind.
We don't.
I don't think so.
Okay, talking about the story behind stuff. Is there some story related to Valkyria?
The song itself, well, it's the ending of a concept album, or mostly a concept album, and the whole point of the album is this, say, unnamed, should I say, Viking age warrior who sets out to die in battle, and so be taken to Asgard, and not to Valhalla, but to Folklore, to Freya, the goddess of sex and fertility, and his dreams come true, and he lives happily ever after. So it's kind of excuse me, it's a dark and happy song at the same time. I suppose the underlying theme is just women and what men will do to get women.
Okay, so I read that you collaborated with George Collier. How was it?
That was great. He played the entire album, Valkyria. He was by far the best drummer I've ever seen, and I'm sure Tadeusz will not feel offended. But George Collier is just in a class of his own. I've never seen or worked with any drummer of that kind. He was. I suppose he was overqualified for a task like this, but he was very careful to play, the right kind of drums for this band and this kind of music. He could have played, 10 times faster and more technical, but it was not the right thing for this music. And we showed him all the songs. He made 2 or 3 attempts at it, and the speed with which he recorded this was just mind-boggling.
Now, you already alluded to the journey from the first to the last album. If we just go to the last work, Heri, could you speak about it, the songwriting, and what has changed between it and the first full-length album?
Oh, there's so much has changed. Well, let me just mention the album in between, the Lay of Thrym. With that one, we had used, since Eric the Red, we had used the same method for recording. We write songs as best we can, make them as finished as we can make them, and then we go to studio for anywhere from 3 to 4, maybe 4.5 weeks. And it was very stressful. We're not getting any younger. It gets more and more stressful and more hectic.
Of course.
And for this album, I decided I simply can't do that anymore. I'm gonna die from stress before I'm 50 if I keep doing that. Yeah. So we're recording it at home on our own time with our own equipment, and that turned out to be quite a bigger challenge than I had expected. First to buy the equipment, then learn how to use it properly to the standards of Jacob Hansen, with whom we had recorded the previous 6 albums. So the songwriting process was much more under our control, and we had much more time to perfect it in a way. It also took a very, very long time and made us very poor in the meantime. You don't make any money while you're in a studio, so that was a problem. But I'm very pleased with the result, and now that we had all that experience, it should be faster. In fact, I know it will be much faster to make the next album. In fact, I already made one with my other project, Surma. It took a bit more than a year, the entire project.
Okay.
So we should be back up to speed now.
Very cool.
So you've been touring for a long time with TYR, and there is a particular moment that you want to share with us. I don't know, a funny moment or a really beautiful moment that you remember most?
Oh, that's a very common question, but it's hard to think of. What I like most, of course, I like the playing and performing. But one of the things that attracts me most to the touring is that as a member of a touring band, you get to see places that you would otherwise never see, and meet people you'd never meet otherwise. So just having been, to places like Rio in Brazil and Vladivostok in Russia and to San Francisco and some isolated places in Canada, it's just It's really wonderful. I really like the traveling. I like to see new places, and it's one of the things I hope to do in the future is see some places I have never seen before. Then, of course, you get to know people, especially people who work at the venues, and seeing them again, it's like meeting old friends. It's very nice. If I can think of anything specific, it might be... there's a venue in Seattle called Z7, and there's a guy called Tracy who runs it, and he's very kind. Every time we meet him, you just walk in there and take what you want at the bar, and just have a shower in the backstage, and then his venue was closed because there was some incident. He runs an old styles venue. There was a hip hop arrangement there, and someone was shot. He lost his license, had to move it, and now he has a venue by a different name in a different part of the city. And we're supposed to go back there. We should be on tour in US, but it was postponed. So sometime next year we're going to go back, and just look forward to see all the people you get to know, over the years, and see how they've saved their business and everything.
Absolutely. So speaking of the future, apart from the touring, which are the concrete future plans for TYR? What are the next steps?
I'm just now working on the next album. This was going to be the best year we've ever had as far as touring goes, but it's all gone down the drain, and we have one show this year, and it'll be in the Faroes. The rest is all in 21. The best thing I can say is I have a lot of time to work on the album, and I really hope I catch myself making promises like this, but I really hope we can finish it, at least the songwriting, before the end of this year. But I have a very bad experience with making predictions like this.
Yes.
So I can't promise anything, but it's just songwriting from now on, and in late January, I think, excuse me, the touring will start again if all goes back to relative normal.
Yes. So after speaking about your musical career, now it's time to focus a little bit in the historical side and how it influenced your music. So how has the Norse literature and belief influenced your life and your music?
Like I said, when I was 10 years old, I learned about Nordic history and mythology in school, and I was captivated by it immediately. I've read a lot about it since then on my own time, and I've used it in the music and the lyrics writing especially. So it's my whole. I think I owe my whole career to it. Honestly, it wouldn't be the same without it, and it already the whole Norse mythology, Viking image, already comes with a lot of goodwill from everywhere in the world. People just like it. Imagine, for example, a samurai band from Japan. You already have captured the imagination of most people who are interested in that kind of thing without even doing anything. So I think it was a very fortunate coincidence, and it's worked out very well for us. And I'm very happy to bring people's attention to it, people who might not know about it, but I suspect most people know about something about Norse mythology, and we're kind of riding on that more than bringing it out to anyone.
So would you just in one sentence maybe, would you say that it is only a cultural or scientific interest, or are you really personally involved with the Norse beliefs?
If I have to put my faith down in one place, I would have to say I'm an atheist. But I have great respect for Norse tradition and Norse mythology, and I think there's a use for mythology and myths. They are nation defining and identity defining, and they serve a purpose, and I have deep respect for that. But I'm not involved in any organization that tries to convince other people of this, or it's just a band. That was not one sentence, I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem.
So we knew that in the Norse mythology there are a lot of sagas and poems. There is one in particular that you love most.
Yes, it's the one about Fenrir, the Tyr and the chaining of Fenrir the wolf. And what I'm fascinated by in that story is the will for a personal sacrifice for a common good. Tyr, the god of warfare and justice, gives his hand for the sake of the common good, putting it in the mouth of the wolf, knowing that he will lose it, but that the wolf at least will be chained until Ragnarok. But he didn't know that. Only Odin knew that. So he thought he was saving the world, but in a way it was in vain. I find that story fascinating.
Do you have various sagas on the Faroe Islands?
No, the whole saga thing was mostly an Icelandic thing. There was no writing in the Faroes of that sort. There is a saga in Iceland about the Faroes, the saga of the Faroe Islanders, or the saga of Trondheimsgate. It's written, obviously, when you read it, you can see it was written by a man who had never visited the Faroe Islands himself, because he makes some strange mistakes about the geography. But supposedly it represents Faroese history from 970 to 1035 approximately, and loosely before that also. In the Faroes we have the ballads and fairy tales, some of them about medieval history as well. Only oral literature written down, mostly all of it written down by the 1850s, I think, and some of it earlier. So it's not as reliable as writing, but Faroese written sources are personal letters, a bit of law writing here and there. The earliest from 1292, I think. No sagas as in Iceland.
Okay.
So how have the Norse religion and belief influenced the way of life on the Faroe Islands?
Well, there is some superstition. No, I have to say there is. I met people who believe in elves and trolls and whatnot. And when I was a child, my grandmother used to tell me I shouldn't go outdoors, or the elves or some other creatures, Niagrusen, would take me. I'm not sure she believed it herself, probably not, but I mean, it's common Nordic folklore, and that survives in some part to this day. There are ballads preserved to this day about Odin and Loki and some other gods. It's been, of course, since medieval times, illegal to believe in it or use it as religion, but it hasn't gone away completely. So I'm sure there's plenty of general Germanic and Nordic customs that have been taken up by the first the Catholic Church and later the Protestant Church, so yeah, it's not a religion in the same sense, of course not even close, but I don't think it should be. I don't think it has to be, but it's still there to anyone who's interested in it.
Okay, so nowadays more and more people seem to be interested in it. We are witnessing some kind of rebirth of folk belief and music. And what do you think about this? What is your opinion on these new folk pagan bands? Is there someone in particular that you prefer?
I like a lot of these folk bands. There's Mishkur from Denmark, beautiful music, really authentic kind of singing, like Norwegian, Swedish, Danish female folk singing, and there's Norwegian, Bergtatt, some very nice renditions of Norwegian traditionals, and yeah, I like it. I think there's not enough of it. I'm sure there are more bands other places in the world. I'm not really one to keep up with and look for the bands in this style, but when I come across it, I really like it. There should be more of it.
Okay, so if, for example, I'm a newbie fan, which song or album of TYR do you recommend me for a start?
The Lay of Thrym, or By the Light of the Northern Star. I think they're the easiest to digest, and they have some of our most popular songs. But of course, the latest album is always a good choice, but it might not be the easiest listen.
Okay, so we have actually arrived at the end of the interview. We would like to thank you for your time, first of all, and sharing your thoughts and musical experience with us. It's been a pleasure for us too. So would you like to say something to the fans that are listening right now?
First, thank you for doing this. This was a great interview, and I would like to ask people to listen to our music on Spotify or wherever they listen to the music, and please come to our shows once we get so far. And if you think you can help us to avoid starvation, you can go to tyr.fo and take a look at our merch store and see if you can buy anything. That's it.
Absolutely.
Until then, stay safe and healthy.
Okay, so thank you and see you soon and open some live show. Thank you, Heri.
I hope so too. Thank you for doing this. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Kneel down, you sinners, to streetwise religion.